Hi, this is Kimberly Morris at procrastistamper.blogspot.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make a shirt and tie card. We're going to start with this 8.5 by 11 sheet of crumb cake cardstock. What I did was cut it in half to 5.5 by 8.5, and we're just going to use one of those to make our card. I'm going to take the Stampin' trimmer, and there are two edges on this. I have the scoring edge marked with an S, and the cutting edge is marked with a C. So right now I'm going to score this 5.5 by 8.5 piece in half at 4 1/4 with a scoring blade. Okay, so I have my cut and scored piece. You can see there's a score line right down the middle. And I'm going to line this up on the Stampin' trimmer at 1 inch. And this is on the other side of the ruler than what you may be used to. Put my guide down, and I'm going to cut all the way across to that center fold. You'll see there's a little tiny like arrow on here, and that's just pointing right there at the fold right now. And so I'm going to measure 1 inch and then a half from this edge. And then without moving my paper, I'm going to lift up the guide, slide the cutter over, and I'm going to cut in 1.5 inches from this side. And then I'll lift that up again and take my paper out. And then you're going to want to cut right here at the edge. You can take your paper snips if you would like to cut that, but I find that I get a really nice cut if I line up the score mark into that groove and slide it over to where the arrow that's at the very tip of that cutting blade is just pointing at that cut that we made. And there's our trimmed card ready to be folded and decorated. Okay, so the next step is to decorate the shirt. This is the front of the card with the collar. We want to just leave that flat for now, and this is the back. So I want to decorate with this Chamomile standard Stampin' Around wheel, and I'm going to use my chocolate chip ink pad to ink that up. So what I'll do is just sort of rev this up like a little motorcycle toy. You want to lift up off the ink pad, just get that all inked up, and then you'll find the seam. So I'm going to put the seam right here so I have a starting place that I can kind of gauge the next time that I roll this. So that seam is going to go right about where the bottom of the paper is, and then I'll just roll straight up. So I'll ink it up again, probably at least 7 times, find my seam again, put that seam in about the same place. You can also kind of see the dots from the side of the wheel, and you can line up the dots on the wheel with the dots here so that they line up better on your finished card. And then I'll roll that up, and we'll just do that again a couple other times. We're going to take this and then we're going to flip it over because we actually want to put a design down here as well. So what you'll want to do is take a scratch piece of paper and line it up with that cut line. Once again, you want to ink up, find that center seam. Not only is that a place that you can mark when you're doing multiple lines to be able to line up your images, it also helps to get that seam out of the way. Okay, so we have cut our card, we've decorated the front and the top of the back. Now I'm going to take my bone folder, and these pieces are going to fold in towards the center to make the shirt collar. So I just want to take my bone folder and just sort of give them a little bit of a crease to kind of help them bend in. And then you can just sort of eyeball the center if you want, and just bring these down to where it looks good, to where the little points right here are right next to each other. And then you'll fold that, and that's going to be your collar. But we're not going to tack that down yet. Now we're going to work on the tie. Okay, the next step is folding the origami tie. I used cardstock, but cardstock is really thick for folding and using for origami. So what I did is, this is a 4-inch square of chocolate chip cardstock. I took my bone folder and just creased it over and over again, all around the sides, turning it over, creasing it the other way. And after a while, you end up with sort of a beat up piece of cardstock. And what happens is the edges of it, you'll find an edge that starts to peel away, and then it peels into, here we go, 2 layers. So I'm not sure if you can see this very well or not, but it starts peeling away into 2 layers. So you'll find that natural place where it's peeling, and you can sometimes feel if one side is thicker than the other. This side feels thicker to me, so it's going to be easier to peel away the thin side. So I'm just going to set that down and just peel it away gradually. And if you get one side that sort of tears, like right here, before you actually get over to the corner, then just start peeling from the other side. And you can also take your cardstock and run it through your bone folder just a few more times to sort of loosen it up around there. And then you just find the next closest corner that's peeling, and then you're going to start from there and then start peeling away the same side that you already peeled away from the other corner, and just go from this direction, and then you should pick up the other pieces. And if you don't get every single bit of the paper off, that's not a big deal. What you're doing is you're just trying to thin this out a little bit so that you can fold it easily with your origami. The side that I like to use is, this is kind of a suede side. This side is a little bit more smooth and kind of shiny, sort of like a satin necktie. So this is the side that I'm going to use. Okay, this is the origami pattern that I use, and I'll make sure that I put a link down below on the YouTube description so that you can find, this is a GIF of the instructions. So you'll see it shows we're going to fold this 4-inch square in half first. And with origami, you want to try and make nice, crisp, exact folds. And we'll fold that back out. The next step shows us that we're going to fold each edge in. So I'll do that. And you want to try and get like the tips of this just matched up as well as you can. Again, your origami looks better the more precise you are with your folding. And if you want to bring your bone folder in, I'm going to smash that open, but we'll bring those points back down. Okay, and our next step, it shows a little squiggle. This means we're going to turn it over. The next step shows the top being folded down, and in the next picture you can see that the top is folded down sort of on an imaginary line from these 2 points, sort of somewhere around here. So we'll fold that down. And our next instruction says to fold this little tip up. And it looks like it's folded up, I don't know, maybe halfway, maybe 2/3 of the way, I'm not sure. So you're going to have it look like that. And then it's going to tell you to fold it up one more time, which is actually this one. And you're just folding it up to right about where that point was. Okay? This part says you're going to fold these tiny little corners up. This is the hardest part. I just kind of take it and bend it up a little bit. Don't know if you can see how far that's bent up, but you bend it up just a tiny bit. Again, it's just a teeny tiny little triangle that's parallel with the top here. I know my lighting is not really great. But what happens is you actually tuck those little parts in that you just made that fold. So that center of that little triangle that you just made, tuck it in or tuck it back, and try and do it about the same on both sides. So you can see you're getting that knot shape there. That's what you're trying to form when you're doing that. Okay, so we've gone through here, we folded up the little tiny corners, and now it's telling us to turn it over one more time. So we're going to turn this over, and now we fold the sides into the center, and you can see it pulls open that little tiny little triangle that you folded. It'll pull on that and pull that to the back, so you won't have all that bulk in the front of your tie. And you just fold that to the center line. Same thing on the other side. Bring it in, pull open that little triangle that you made. And this is where you might want to kind of have your bone folder to help you pull it down and press it flat here. This actually should be tucked under here. Okay, and then that's our last step, and there's our necktie. Okay, so when I'm adhering the necktie, I like to adhere the top first. I just put one Stampin' Dimensional right here at the top. And again, I just kind of eyeball it. I want the top of the tie to be right here where these 2 points of the shirt are meeting. And under here, under the lapels, I'm going to take my almost empty battered box of mini glue dots, and I'm going to add one glue dot underneath, just kind of in the middle at the end of each lapel. We'll put one here, and then we'll just sort of bring those down, and that should touch our tie and keep that. And then I found that because of the sort of felty underside of the tie, the mini glue dots don't tend to work really well underneath. So I like to take a Stampin' Dimensional, and I like to use these ones that are on the end and just sort of cut a pointy one. And then you'll actually put that point at the end of your necktie. Peel off the backing, the end of your necktie down there. Now if you want, you could go back in and add some more glue to keep this down and to keep it flat. I like to take my bone folder and just sort of rub over the tie to flatten it a little bit. Okay, so once your tie is on there and adhered down gently, you can take, if you would like, a rhinestone jewel. I like to pick these up with my paper snips, just kind of get underneath them, and I like to line this up right about here. And then I like to put a greeting right across here. It looks sort of like a tie tack. Okay, so if you want to put a greeting on here, I'm going to use Happy Father's Day. I'm going to go ahead and take the chocolate chip that I used to ink up the wheel, and I will ink up the Happy Father's Day stamp from the Teeny Tiny Wishes stamp set. And I'll stamp that in the chocolate chip ink. This is on a little piece of very vanilla scrap cardstock. And this punches out all of the stamps, actually, all the little sayings in the Teeny Tiny Wishes stamp set. All of them will fit inside this word window punch. So we have the greeting there. And then this is the little strip that came off the side of the card that we trimmed off the crumb cake cardstock earlier. So I'm going to punch this out with the modern label punch. And then I am going to layer this onto here. I'll go ahead and use my mini glue dots that I already have out, and I'll just stick one glue dot on the end of each side of this little greeting. Center that. And then I want this to go across the tie. So I'm going to put Stampin' Dimensionals on here, but you can see you're going to want to put them really far out to the edge. So if you can take just one of those little half pieces along the edge if you have them, or cut a Stampin' Dimensional in half and just use one half on each side, that works perfectly. Then we'll just peel off the backings, and you may or may not want to kind of slide this down and see where it catches with the Stampin' Dimensionals. Sort of line it up wherever you want on your card, and that helps sort of keep the tie down as well instead of having it stick up on the card. And then you can just put your greetings inside. If you want to embellish this a little bit more, you can always go around the edges and sort of sponge it to give it some definition, but I think that looks fine.